Welcome to a Sunday live stream that I was going to do earlier, but my Christmas party last night lasted way longer than expected, which is okay. That's the point. It's having fun, a lot of friends over, all that good stuff, and we ended up staying up pretty late. But that's just life sometimes. Let me turn off my phone. I always think to do these things after I hit go live, like, hey, I probably have something that's going to send me a bunch of notices and beep a lot. Let's turn that off. Hopefully everyone's doing well on this Sunday morning. It is 11:16 a.m. here, Eastern Standard Time. Morning. Always nice to get your offsite backup done and find out the next day that the OneDrive and a ZFS RAID 1 pool was ejected due to 1.1 errors. Yeah. Yep. Afternoon, just ordered some drives. I'll be putting my offsite backup down to them to check. Awesome. Is an untested backup actually a backup? Yeah. This is one of those things that nobody cares about a backup that works. Everyone wants to restore that works. And if you don't have any tested backups, it's just wishful thinking. They need to put that on a shirt. Untested backups are wishful thinking. I just don't know what graphic goes on it, or does a graphic go on it? I think I have a graphic of a NAS like done in a sketch. That might be what goes on it. I'll figure that out. Maybe that'll be one of my projects today, is doing some creative stuff. But such is life. That's definitely a something to think about, is do your backups work? Yeah, no one cares until they go through not being able to restore and recover something. Painful lesson. Absolutely, you're not wrong at all. This is constantly a challenge, especially as your company gets bigger. This is something we face here at CNWR, the IT side. It's now a big project to go through the tabletop exercise of doing the restores, testing your backups, auditing everything to make sure you didn't miss something, and just making sure we understand where everything is. It's a scaling thing. You have a lot of tools and a lot of software that have to manage for all of your security. And then the other side of it is managing all the data that's associated with it. So that'll be, we're going to be doing a tabletop on that soon, and I'll figure out what some of these things I want to get done are two parts. There's the business side, which will go on our business technicalities channel. And then there's the tech side of walking through this that will go on this channel. I keep this channel tech focused, and I keep the business technicalities channel, talking about business. And it's a great way to engage with us for people who have the whole, want to dive into the business side or curious about how things work. We're extremely transparent with that. And then I keep the tech side over here. That's why I always have that link in these streams and whatnot. And I've been promoting it more, our business technicalities channel. I just want to make sure people who are interested going, hey, what about this? What about that? Like I said, we're very transparent on that as a topic. Hey, Tom, we deploy workstations to manage clients. How do you handle transfer of customer applications from old workstation to new, remotely or on site? We use tools like EmiBot, and I'll just share the screen with everyone so people know the words I'm using here. This is actually in our tooling. This is one of the deployment tools we use and have a full integration for. I'll throw it in a link in here. Anyone interested in it? Not promoted by EmiBot. We just happen to use them. Darren, the person who came up with EmiBot's awesome. He is a absolute amazing person in terms of the way they're able to write this stuff to do deployments. So this is part of our workflow for doing that. For getting things to clients. It may have, and some software may have to be done on clients, but the majority of it we can usually get done at the office, where it's just easier to get done. I see Travis has found his way here. 2 days to go until the TrueNAS update. Probably. Business versus Homelab versus home. Yeah, lots to talk about there. I'm in all of those categories. I found the fact I found that when a drive fails in an array, it is easier to delete and remake the array and then just copy the backup over. Reprovisioning a failed drive is a tedious affair. Yes. I guess, well, that depends. I mean, resilvering things inside of a ZFS pool with TrueNAS is actually pretty easy. I've got a couple of videos on that topic. I don't know that this needs its own video, but hold on, let me find it, because I know a lot of people want to probably have some thoughts on it. Where did this piece of information go? There we go. We're going to go right to the source on this one. And that's the whole UniFi thing that happened. It's interesting. There's been statements from UniFi on this. And if you aren't in the know on this, what happened was their cloud system got messed up. Security issues. Cloud Site Manager presented me your counsels, not mine. And people were talking about this. So they now fixed it. Cloud access misconfiguration. Dear Ubiquiti community, yesterday, thanks to your feedback support, we were made aware of a small number of instances where we received push notifications. What happened? 1,216 Ubiquiti accounts were improperly associated with a separate group of 1,170 Ubiquiti accounts. When this happened on December 13th, 6:47, what does this mean? During this time, a small number of users from Group 2 received push notifications on their mobile devices from the councils assigned to a small number of users from Group 1. Additionally, during this time, Group 2 attempted to log into his or her community account, may have been granted temporary remote access to Group 1 account. Was the current status? Ubiquiti has solved the misconfiguration with cloud infrastructure. The problem is solved, and Ubiquiti accounts are not properly associated across our infrastructure. How many accounts from Group 1 actually improperly accessed Group 2? We're still investigating, but we believe less than a dozen. I do know my account was improperly accessed. We plan to reach out to any accounts in Group 1 via email. Now, I don't know that this needs the a dedicated video, but it does point out a real problem when it comes to how do you deal with cloud security incidents. And people were saying they didn't respond fast enough. 2 days they took to respond, but this is obviously probably a bunch of engineers going, what happened? What allowed these accounts? And like they said, it's not a big number here for the scale and scope that UniFi operates at. It is a small number. It's not an excuse, but it's one of those things of it didn't happen to all of their clouds. So walk through this as put your engineering hats on. And if someone tells you the application that runs your enterprise and all of your cloud connectivity for all of your users suddenly has a couple people that can view each other's things, you have to try to figure out why those couple people, and is it only a couple people? Are these people correct that stated this on a Reddit and started tagging Ubiquiti in a post? There's a lot going on there. And I think Ubiquiti, the best thing you really do, this is kind of a good playbook here, you investigate immediately, which they seem to do, but you can't really make a statement other than we're investigating. And that's all they said. We're looking into it, and which is completely what they should be doing. People are saying the response wasn't rapid enough, blah, blah, blah. There's always going to be that. I think they got on it relatively quickly. Obviously, it's a big issue, but this is the broader topic. How do you handle cloud security when there's no CVEs? How do you know it was really fixed? See, when you have local applications, I can say, hey, version number 1.1 had a problem. We updated to version 1.2. The problem is gone. That is not the same in cloud because you don't see the version numbers. They fix things on the back end. So how do you know it's not going to happen again? Sorry, you don't. You don't get to see the code. How do you know it was fixed? Because they said it was fixed. So it's a really interesting problem that presents with all cloud companies. Look at Microsoft, who's had one disaster. 2023 was a rough year for Microsoft in terms of cloud misconfiguration disasters. That whole write-up that caused them to lose their keys, then get a bunch of government accounts accessed. I mean, that was the biggest event they had, but there was a series of smaller ones. And this is where it's a challenge. I'll assume Microsoft fixed these problems because if the person who found the problem is unable to repeat it, okay. But the Ubiquiti one's a little bit different because it's only a couple people that were even able to make this happen. And then their ability to do that went away, which means we assume it's fixed. Or is there another name collision somewhere that might cause this? It's a real big challenge. And it's one of those things where when you're looking at any of the services, especially any cloud relay service that you attach to, I always think about what's the risk factor for this. It's why I'm so careful, like cameras. There's a reason I'm using Synology and not using their cloud for that. I don't want to. I do have, and I accept the risk because it's on a separate network that I have decided to port forward my Synology. I've talked about this before in my setup on there. I accept the risks that come with port forwarding it. That has its own risk because now I'm relying on Synology to make a product that doesn't have a security hole in it. So you can kind of see that it can be a real challenge. It's just about what risks you're willing to accept. So if you're willing to tie your cameras to a cloud system, you have now deferred that risk to the cloud company to do a good job. And we hope they continue to do a good job. But it's definitely not an easy answer because we want the convenience of simple apps to have push notifications that let us know when something's happening versus the more complicated way to set it up, but then still relying on those companies to hopefully build a secure product if I want to only have it to myself. So the risk factor is a little different, but there's still a risk factor. And these are the balancing points you need to decide when you're setting these up. So yeah, it's an interesting, I don't know if it needs a dedicated video, but I did think about making like a cloud security video just as a topic. And the fact that there's no CVEs with cloud make it a little bit more challenging. My understanding is they had full access to those other. They said it seems to be less than a dozen people that did this, but they had access to it. Here's the difference. If I accidentally get access to something, the likelihood that I'm going to do something bad is really low. Like if you are accidentally handed someone else's car keys, do you steal their car? No, you try to find the owner. You know what I mean? This is what the average person do because the intent of the people was not nefarious. It is statistically less likely, but they are still contacting, and as it said in that notice from Ubiquiti, they're still contacting each person because they have a log of what was or was not changed. Therefore, they can tell those people what was accessed. I assume. I don't know because I'm not one of the people. And maybe if one of those people wants to come forward or reach out to me, neat. If they have some information of what that Ubiquiti interaction looks like, I'd be interested in talking to them. But maybe they'll talk to one of the news outlets. We're kind of curious on the back end what goes on. But because this is, once again, I can't reproduce it, so I can't really say what level of access they actually had. An incident like this is a shy away larger corp customers that have strict IT and controls in place. Yeah. Needs context around. A lot of people miss serious issues yet rapidly solve, investigate, publish. A lot of companies have hidden things like this. Right. Oh yeah. Ubiquiti did not hide it. That's my biggest takeaway is Ubiquiti did not hide it. They were transparent. They said for a couple of days we're investigating, which is fair. And then from there, they published the details. Perfect. That's what I want. Transparency. Maybe MFA needs to be at the device level. You're back to the convenience argument. Do you want to have to do MFA every single time you have a push notification that says detected object? Let me go look. Oh, hold on. Let me put my password in a 2FA each time. You could, but this is the balance between usability and security. What's your take on UniFi Express? I've had the UX for a week now, and I have to say I'm a little disappointed by its range compared to U6 Lite. I'm still testing it, so I don't have an opinion on it yet. But it's well, I'm not fully testing it yet. It's on my almost tested within the next few days type thing. Here's a question for the audience here because there's 150 people here. So, hi Tom, Tailscale versus Twingate. What's the difference? So I have not taken, but several people have. Jeff Geerling. I know Jeff and Network Chuck are two people that I know have taken sponsorship money from Twingate. Twingate reached out to me and I did not take a sponsorship from them. I didn't. Whoops. Accidentally, there's one, I got a back button on my mouse, and when I went to grab the mouse, I hit the back button. Sorry about that. But the problem with TwinGate is they want to sponsor me, and I don't like their branding. So this is one of the problems I had with TwinGate is I'm not even gonna here. Let's get some opinions here. And because I've never taken money from them, I can just have opinions that you can't say are shaped by money. And by the way, sponsorships want to give you a lot of money. I mean, a good sponsorship deal, $15,000-$20,000 to do a video for a channel my size, if not more. And it's a whole lot higher if you're a channel the size of Network Chuck. So here's the question. Knowing not only a video is sponsored, but knowing like if a sponsor paid someone $40,000, $50,000 to do a video, how do you feel about that person saying there's no bias and opinion in it of their review of it? Just asking. This is a question I started also in my forums on this exact same topic. But I don't like the way they say it's time to ditch your VPN. I also told them, and somewhere in here, let's go to the docs. Was it in the docs? Architecture. Lots of words about zero trust, how TwinGate works, connectors, resources, groups. But my problem is, and I asked them, I don't have they don't have it in their documentation, are detailed how TwinGate works. Peer-to-peer, auth, TwinGate. All right. Where's the transport layer? What level of security are they using? They've omitted all of that. So I don't know what they're using. They don't document what they're using. I don't have trust in random company wanting to pay me lots of money to have sponsorship when I don't know how good their product is. Or when they obscure things. You won't find this level of obscurity on Tailscale, so I trust Tailscale. They're both commercial companies, so we can... By the way, I've not taken any money from Tailscale either. So because I've not taken any money from either one of these companies, I'm still leaning towards Tailscale because of the level of transparency they offer. I don't know if I want to do a video because I'm giving free publicity to TwinGate if I do that. When wouldn't the business person to me take money? Hey, why not take money from both companies? Because both, I think, I think I've got an offer from the people. It's been a while since I talked to them. The people at Tailscale, I think they're still offering sponsor money. I know TwinGate is because I got more people doing sponsors with them, and they've offered. So the difference to me is there's a level of transparency with Tailscale, and there's a lack of transparency with TwinGate. TwinGate's closed source top to bottom. Tailscale has open source clients. So when I'm comparing the two, I'll go with more open source rather than less. That's my opinion on it. This sounds like improperly designed cloud software, splitting them up among groups and don't use unique IDs for other group, maybe push notifications, access. Yeah, I don't know. We don't know the behind the scenes of how cloud software is often written. So there's just a lot of speculation we have without a lot of answers. Do you have a recommendation for a privacy conscious cloud backup provider? I keep saying $100 10-minute life from Digo. I like Backblaze. I encrypt before I send, and I have no sponsors that that's not any way endorsed as a sponsor. That's just me using them. Backblaze, I encrypt before send. If you encrypt before send, I don't care about the privacy policy of the cloud company. It is what it is. I don't trust any of them. I don't have to trust any of them because I encrypt before send. When money changes hands, bias comes into play. Yeah. So here, all encryption is done using standard ciphers. Great. Standard ciphers. That's freaking great. Divulge your sponsorship. Well, this becomes a challenge. And some YouTubers, I'm not calling anybody out, they can do what they want, but this is just not rules enforced. There are rules from the Federal Trade Commission here in the United States, but the problem comes down to the way it's done. So if they disclose a sponsorship, but they have 3 sponsors, they've followed the compliance. This video is sponsored. And they say like, hey, thanks for so-and-so, but they also seem to have other sponsors in there. Or what if they say it in the last 10 seconds of the video? Thanks for blah, blah, blah sponsoring this video. Are they compliant? But maybe you watched the entire video without noticing that. That's a discussion going on in my forums where people were thinking, you, the audience that were participating in this talk in my forums, were saying, well, I don't think the person was as clear as they could have been. I don't know. They're following the law. I try to do it up front, and I disclose it up front. Now, I take some products sent to me. Those are fine. I do sponsored tutorials. If you notice, any of the sponsored tutorials do not say review, and I don't tell you that this is a product that is being reviewed. I say this is a walkthrough demo tutorial. That's different than, it's one of the reasons. Matter of fact, when I'm having my negotiations with the companies, sometimes they don't like the idea that I say that, and it will not pay me to be sponsored. I try to do very few of them, but hey, it takes money to run the channel. It takes money to do all this, and YouTube money sucks from the back end. Like the amount of money YouTube pays me, not much through ads. It's gotten worse. I used to make more with less views. The ad revenue has gone dramatically down. The Amazon affiliate revenue is like half or even a quarter of what it used to be. So the only thing I'm going to have to do is get more sponsors, is what it is. But sponsors are, what keeps the bills paid. Is Twingate competing with the likes of Zscaler, where they can define role-based access and device protocols? Similar. That's what their claim is. They have a lot of application level control. So, I mean, I get what they do as a product. I understand it. I just don't like their lack of transparency on it. But it seems to be people that like them. They've been around for a minute. Do you trust Tailscale really? That it's really a PDB detection, all secrets stored on endpoints, or do you trust Tailscale only relays traffic? Well, because it's open source, because you can look at the transport layer and how it's working, you don't have to trust them. I have to trust if I'm using one of the other products that has a completely closed source system. Tailscale is an open source endpoint. That's where trust comes from, is the fact that it's become really popular because of the trust that they have. And if you don't trust them, you can swap Tailscale to point at Headscale and then look at it yourself. So because you can self-host Headscale and manage Tailscale, and now you've solved the problem of wonder what they're doing. Well, you're taking that same open source client and pointing it at something you host. You can unravel it all at that point. Any good third-party backup providers like Veeam for XCP-ng or Proxmox? No, not that I'm aware of. Proxmox has their backup product, and XCP-ng has their integrated product. This is a internal discussion going on at CNWR because we're a Veeam company for all the business, and I don't really see the team at Vates spending any time. Maybe if Veeam wants to write something, but I don't really see the team at Vates spending a lot of time on Veeam integration. They have their own backup product. It's one of the selling points, and it decreases your total cost of ownership. This is a selling point for XCP-ng going, well, do you want to pay for, your servers and a backup, or we can combine that into one product where it's deeply integrated, very automated, works really well, especially the Delta backups are amazing for this. You can target all the different storage types, so there's no storage lock-in. That's the selling point of XCP-ng. We use standard. Yeah, but which one? Yeah, I know. Like I said, you can see how vague they are on their site. I told them I didn't like how vague their site was. They still that was like 6 months ago that I told them that. They didn't care to fix it, I guess. I think it's important to disclose up front beginning of the video. If you don't follow DB Tech, he's a friend of mine. Great, another good YouTube channel. He's got a lot of good Docker videos. I've learned some more Docker. I learned about Dockage. I think that's how you say it. The Uptime Kuma person also wrote another Docker tool. But anyways, I think it's important to disclose up front at the beginning of the video, not at the end. Another mention at the end is nice, but the beginning of the video is very important. I 100% agree with you on that. TwinGates administration general page. I found the security info. They seem to support TLS 1.2. And they do list the ciphers there. Okay, so they do have a page where they list it, but they're just telling you what ciphers they're using. They're not really, like, those are cool, but how are you actually implementing all of it? Like, Tailscale has a detailed write-up with WireGuard of how they're using it. And because they use WireGuard, because they tell you how the keys work, there's not any questions I have about Tailscale, how it works. Their documentation doesn't leave me digging or guessing. So YouTube is fighting ad blockers where it's paying. It's great. No, there's the problem is it's a different economic problem than that. That is definitely the opinion. And if you listen to some of the ranty YouTubers that talk about it, they're not really talking about the full economic problem here. And it's that companies are buying less ads. And if companies are buying less ads, how do you support the infrastructure that it takes to do a video? I mean, if you really start looking at how do you run, and this is where anyone who's competing with YouTube is falling apart. They don't have the money to really keep the infrastructure up to scale at what YouTube scales at. And they pay the creators pretty well in terms of we get a cut of the ad revenue. The problem is when everyone's products are being bought and there's a bigger demand for product than there is supply, the ads slow down because if you have more leads coming in or more inbound sales coming in, then you can produce product. How much do you spend on advertising? That was the problem after the pandemic for a while, is companies just dramatically cut their ads. Cisco completely dropped advertising on YouTube, for example. Cisco was like one of the pre-roll ads I see all the time on mine. If I open my videos incognito window sometimes because I'd see, because I have YouTube Premium, so I don't ever see ads. But by starting to look at it and like, yeah, wow, look at all these Cisco ads and things like that. Some of the big companies that were in the tech space stopped advertising because they just don't have the need for it or decided to save the budget. So that's, I think, where it just dropped down a lot. I snapshot from XCP-ng to a local NAS and then back up to Backblaze from there. Snapshot to a local NAS? I guess you could do that. I would probably recommend using their backup tool. Veeam could do adding support for XCP-ng. I mean, if Veeam sees enough interest in it, yeah, they want to be where their customers are, so there's a chance they could do it. I do KVM to Backblaze. I like it just fine. Not sure how I do it with XCP-ng. XCP-ng supports S3 compatible buckets. So in XCP-ng, that's another option. So also, hello, Veronica, other good YouTuber. If you don't follow Veronica Explains. Happen to test VM performance and Proxmox to mean something like, I have not done, and I don't know if I will do a direct comparison between Zen and Proxmox. There's someone who actually did a really in-depth test. If you dig around, it's from a few years ago. They actually compared the hypervisors and actually found that all of them, from VMware to XCP-ng, well, they were testing the Citrix version, and they tested KVM, and I think they tested Proxmox. So they had two versions of KVM, like just setting it up and that. They actually found them all to be within a percentage of each other. There were some things like slightly higher, but they were not there. Now, the one thing that was a little bit different is you can get different IO performance. Zen has some trouble with VDIs, like the hard disk access. The reason why, though, is because of the isolation they use, which is for high levels of security. The other people don't do that. There's a write-up on the challenges and the risk of not isolating that and some of the problems that can come from it. But it's not like night and day. It just comes down to if you're running single VM, and this is the thing that's stupid when I see tests like this, you don't build your hypervisor generally to run a single VM. You run multiple. So if you compare single VM performance of Proxmox on the same hardware with single VM performance of XCP-ng, you're like, aha, I got faster IO out of my Proxmox. But that doesn't hold up at scale. They turn out to be evened out when you have multiple VMs running. And that's a more realistic scenario for how a hypervisor is used. Many VMs running and competing for resources. Agree with your response. At least you list some info there, but I guess the point we have zero trust with TwinGate. I'll see myself out. I could do an idiot's guide to virtualization covering apps, services, and Ubiquiti. Why would you want to install it? Would make a great series. Oh, yeah. ESXi and Veeam Shop, but yeah, Future is uncertain with VMware, so looking at alternatives like XCP and Proxmox, we need to be able to trust the backups. Haven't tried them. So the Proxmox backups I've not tested, but I can tell you XCP-ng is, from anyone who's watched me do my backup videos, told me it is light years ahead of what Proxmox does, because they even have full restore testing to do, your whole backup validation by restoring the VM and booting it up. That's all natively built into the Zen Orchestra backups. So you can actually have a backup and then on a schedule, reboot the servers and test them, even have them tested on another system that XO is attached to. I've got a whole video I've done recently on that topic. So they don't just have all the normal backup features, they have all the advanced backup features like that, which I think is pretty amazing. Yeah. S3 backups, the good and bad. I'm not gonna lie. S3 versus NFS backups, not gonna be fast. But the way it works in XCP-ng, what is fast about it is the fact that it does it's doing delta block differentials. So when you're building it out, it's thousands of little blocks, and it looks at the differences between those blocks to reslice what the differential is between once you did your main backup and then each subsequent delta after that. They got that optimized really well. So once you got your initial seed of your primary backup, the incremental backups can go relatively fast over S3, but the initial one does take a long time. The reality is, the just nature of the protocol, NFS versus S3 is going to be pretty substantially different in terms of performance, just the underlying protocols. I know Veronica knows all this. I'm explaining it to the class here. Post-good, there was a huge worldwide supply line issue and backlog, so advertising hardware made no sense then. Yep. Sorry, that's not what I meant. I back up local NAS Synology, and then I Synology Cloud Sync to sync my folders onto Backblaze. Immutability enabled on Backblaze. Should have Veronica in the also doing the NAS. Yes, Veronica's gone full-time on YouTube, so she's definitely making lots more videos. Thoughts on TrueNAS Core versus Scale? Got a whole video dedicated to it. I still feel the same way as I did when I did the last video on the topic. Core is nice and stable. Scale has more apps. How would you migrate VM from ESXi to XCP-ng? You're in luck. They have an import tool for that. That is probably the easiest way, is they do have an import tool. Pull it up here. But they started working on this. This is the actual where it can log into your VMware and import. So this is something new they've done. They have VM import, disk import, or VMware import, where you actually can point it at there, give it your user password, skip the SSL check, connect to your VMware server, and start doing imports. They've got write-ups in there of how to do this. It's been on my to-do list. I just don't do much VMware, but we might stand up a VMware system to show how it works. But there's a lot of people that have been testing it. We tried to do a VMware renewal purchase of some additional license last week, but it was blocked with Broadcom start out their plan. Yep. I wonder how much open source companies is really a true thing in terms of end product, meaning if companies really sticks to code which they wrote, or do they implement as they told us? There may be, I don't know. Companies I trust, like Netgate or the people at IX Systems who produce TrueNAS, I think they do. I think the people at Tailscale do that. But I don't know that every company does. So what percentage of companies, I have no idea. Yeah, there's not an open source equivalent of like the VMware Horizon. So that's a different topic. There's not an XCP-ng or open source version for Horizon. So if you have, this is where VMware becomes a big word, not just a hypervisor. VMware encompasses a lot of products. So if you talk about VMware Horizon, that's a different product than just their hypervisor. I know it all can tie together. That's not what I'm talking about, but it comes down to your use case of whether or not you can switch. So we look at Citrix MSVDI. I don't know, man. Between Horizon and Citrix is their whole VDI stuff is just constantly in the news for security flaws. So yeah. How do you know if UniFi still supports the UAP they made in the new cloud update? I don't understand that question. Oh, the first UAP? Look for the end. They have an end of life page. Look up the UniFi end of life and see what's end of life. I never run VPN on my NAS. So I see people asking about this and don't expect me to do a video on it. I'm just not I have firewalls that I run VPN on. It's a better place to run the VPN. Now, Tailscale, now they've got Tailscale. I think that's pretty cool because it kind of simplifies it. But running a VPN on my NAS it's low on my priorities. 99% of the time you're gonna find me running the VPN on the firewall where I believe it belongs. Another thing we have to think about is leaving SI is sometimes software providers for the guest room only support ESXi. Hyper-V, not sure how they handle that yet. Well, support, it depends on how you want them to support it. If what happens is people stick it in a hypervisor that aren't skilled at it. So the company says, look, I can't support every hypervisor out there, but because I know I'm probably going to have to help you walk you through something, I'm only going to support it if you stick it in VMware or Hyper-V. I won't support the other ones. And the reason I've seen vendors do that is because the questions they're getting are not about their product. It's about how does networking work in VMware and things like that. Matter of fact, some of the problems that people reach out to us about have nothing to do with it's just silliness, as you can see. So you just have to decide that if you have a vendor that says we support virtualizing in VMware, but you put it in something else, that your questions can't be about how the networking works in that hypervisor or how a setting works in that hypervisor. That's usually where the support line ends. It's not that they usually have a problem with being in another hypervisor. They'll just treat it as bare metal where the hardware is your problem and don't ask us about it. Can a Proxmox container be moved and run some other place, like in a Ubuntu server? I don't use Proxmox, so I don't know. Rumor is Bureau Broadcom will be offloading their EUC products and Carbon Black. Yeah, who knows? If it's not profitable, they're getting rid of it. I only run Tailscale and my TrueNAS scale install because there's no pfSense package for it. There's a pfSense package for Tailscale, so I'm confused. I love Tailscale on pfSense. It's one of the other reasons I really like Tailscale is because it's built into pfSense. So I would use Tailscale and pfSense. I've done a video on it, so I can guarantee it's in there. SAP are like that. They're at least supported using VMs and production loads, only specific VMware versions. Yeah. I try to leave the router untouched when it comes to services. I host VPN DNS on my hypervisor. Do you think it's better to just run things on the firewall? I prefer it that way. And it's usually because it's a better configuration experience. Matter of fact, I think they're deprecating more features that are makes complete sense to me. The people at TrueNAS are moving function not to the core, but to the edge where the apps are. This makes a lot of sense because why would I want to have to maintain a VPN? Because there's an update or security change. TrueNAS is an appliance. So I need to respin a new ISO for my appliance, a new installer and an update because they don't do minor updates because it's built like an appliance. It's not built like a package manager where you're updating packages, but the applications are. So this is why they deprecated rsync, for example, and moved it in as a package because that makes a lot more sense. What is your thoughts on Apple being forced to allow users to install third-party apps in the EU? I don't know. I don't really have an opinion on it. I didn't really look into what the ruling is or what the details are on it, but I don't use Apple devices much, so who knows? They don't send me things if you're talking about UniFi. I buy everything myself for UniFi. They decided, I think I was just too harsh on their products. So They quit sending me things, which is fine. Now I see this now removes any even hint of bias because I'm the one buying the products now. Do you have any experience with a good SOC SIM service offer from MSP to offer? Blumera. There, and this, granted, I do have a bias. They are a sponsor, so fully disclosing that up front, but they're also someone we're using. So that's something worth noting. We actually use them. How well does Tailscale work? Mostly Windows-based network. Tailscale works fine on Windows and Linux. Actually works fine on my phone too. So Apple phones, Android phones, MacBooks. Tailscale's got all the ecosystems covered. So when the UniFi Express light views drop, there won't be any fluff or BS. True. They are not sending me things. I bought the UniFi Express with my money. So because I'm buying all these things with my money, there's simply no other opinion on there. To actually get, you must be branded with Omni barcode on either your right hand or wrist because you're getting the wrist or the forehead. What to do when receiving unprompted MFA OTP? Change your password. If you're receiving them, someone has your user and password. That is the most likely answer for that. That is, I don't understand when there's like one of the threat problems was MFA fatigue that we seen earlier or late last year, probably late last year. And I'm like, MFA fatigue. If you're getting prompted a bunch of times, probably someone's trying to log in as you and hoping you'll hit yes. Is VMware making a Workstation Pro subscription? I have no idea what they're doing. I do know what they're doing. VMware is going to raise prices. Call me psychic. Or call me someone who read the earnings reports and someone who read the announcements that VMware's been doing. They're raising prices. I don't know how much. I don't know where. I just know it's raising. DB Tech says, I did a video a couple years ago creating a network on zero tier and adding Windows Synology in a phone. Maybe I should make one using Tailscale. I'd recommend it because I've done a few Tailscale videos. I've done some zero tier videos. I really like zero tier, but Tailscale beat them to the punch for having both an ability to easily self-host if you want. So Headscale, which I haven't done an updated Headscale video. So that's another one if you're looking for a video topic that could be readdressed. When I did the video, there was features that weren't available that are available now, including, and I haven't decided for certain yet, but I thought about switching over to Headscale because now they support phone. When I did the Headscale video, they didn't have the phone support. This is actually what I like. This is another big thank you to the people at Tailscale for this. The reason they didn't support phone is because they couldn't compile their own phone app. So you'd have to sideload an app was one of the options. Well, the people at Tailscale decided to allow the phone app that is from Tailscale, signed by Tailscale, so legit update, to point to third-party servers. Tailscale actually allows and has submitted code to the people at Headscale. So this is one of those things when I look at a company and go, this is a positive outlook I have. Not only can they allow you to switch servers, they've actually contributed code back to the people at Headscale instead of a cease and desist. Because technically, if you're using Headscale, you're not going to buy the paid version of Tailscale. But I think that's great. That shows me good community engagement. One of the reasons I think they're just a good company. Broadcom equal prescription. Yes, they did kill off Perpetual. That's dead. What 2 terabyte exterior is the fastest and most solid build? I have no idea. Yeah, unprompted MFA codes, MFA fatigue, YubiKey hardwares might help with that. Anytime I can get a hardware key to do OTP codes, I take that option. This is a good. I'm angry right now at Hover. I have a ticket open with them, but no response on the ticket. Hover has OTP. So I have my OTP. I've used Hover for years as my domain registrar, and I can't log in. And right now I can't log in because they quit sending emails. I've tried calling their support. You can spend all day on support. They normally would answer their phone support, but this is an annoyance I have because they went from OTP to sending you a link and then asking for OTP. And I'm like, why are they doing this? Why are they trying to send me links to my email? So it's become a real annoyance for me because their email server's not sending emails, and I don't know what to do about it. And it's funny because I can't log in to update the ticket, so I have to reply to the ticket via email. And I know they're receiving emails because it generates a ticket, but the ticket tells me to log in. But my problem is I can't log in, and I can't talk to Hover support because they're apparently busy, probably with everyone else is trying to log in. So it's just dumb. But yeah, unprompted MFA codes. Definitely, I wish more companies, keys. I love the keys. Here we go. Please, more companies support this. I won't hold my breath on that happening anytime soon. Any opinion or insight if they're going to keep the edge right? I don't know if UniFi is going to keep the edge router going. I really don't know. Can you do a video about systems at Taco Bell? Probably not. Why does Wi-Fi 6 not support PPSK SSIDs? Have you seen that? The option disappears when you change that option. I don't know. Hi, Tom. Have you got a video showing how to set up Unbound and pfSense while using Pi-hole? You just point your DNS. You don't use both. That wouldn't make any sense. You just point your DNS at Pi-hole if you're using Pi-hole. I don't use Pi-hole. I don't want a separate DNS. I'm fine with using the DNS inside of pfSense, and I've done videos on PF Blocker. PF Blocker can use the same feeds as Pi-hole. It does not have the same pretty reports that you're going to get out of Pi-hole, but the pretty reports are fun for the first week you set up Pi-hole, and then it becomes something you never look at. So I just moved to using it inside of pfSense. Would you recommend downloading anything from Pirate Bay? No. I'm considering downloading Final Cut Pro. I mean, it's undoubtedly got there. This is a common attack vector is pirated software. It's constantly an attack vector. I don't recommend it at all. Yeah, eventually headscale users might convert to Tailscale paid subscriptions, especially if it's a business. Yeah, exactly. Yep, this is another good point. To be fair, most people using Tailscale are Homelab users, so it would be better for them to get those non-paying users off their servers. Yeah. I don't know who Nathan Lane is. Could you build the perfect pfSense box in a 1U configuration? It's been a long time since you did a pfSense build. I do have one coming. What do you think about passkeys? Still very skeptical on them. Not their security. It's until they are more like, if you tell me, hey, we're going to tie everything to your phone. Great. How do I back it up so I can copy this to my other phone? You're going to have to do a bunch of resets. Well, then that's annoying. It's about the portability and making sure that I am the one in control of that portability. Is Cat 8 a meme? Maybe it should be. I agree with this right here. pfSense plus PF Blocker equals great experience. It's just simple. I'm always someone who tries to do things more simply, less things to maintain. Talos lists are supposed to be good, but I think they wrap behind Snort. Yes. Well, I think Talos might have a DNS list. But yeah, they're usually Talos updates Snort. Hi, Tom. We want to replace a UDM Pro with a Netgate pfSense, or would it be better if the Netgate and UDM Pro coexisted? I think replace. Having 2 firewalls and double natting things is a headache. None right now. I use very little, if any, most of the time because of the blocking creating a headache sometimes. So, it's one of the funny things that people hire us a lot for. Hey, the internet's not working properly. Yeah, we got to prune your block list. Well, that's tedious. Yes, it is. Here's our rate. It's becoming a problem if you block some things because you'll find it breaks other things. So I don't know of a good block list. I don't. Do one of the it's mostly I think going to be better to use things like uBlock. I just think it works better. And when it breaks a site, I can just click the button in the browser and fix the site. So I would say I'm leaning way more towards uBlock than anything else. Oh, I won't lie, the Pi-hole interface is way nicer. That's why I said it's got a nice interface, but yeah. This is what usually happens. Blocks the Akamai CDN, internet breaks. Yep. If you block Akamai or Cloudflare, it just breaks the internet. A pretty substantial part of the internet runs on Akamai and Cloudflare. Hard drives in bulk. Do I buy new or used on eBay, especially for SaaS drives? Depends on your budget. I mean, new drives, you're going to get a better warranty. You're less likely to have a problem statistically, but they cost double what you can get like refurb drives for. Depends on what I'm buying. I've definitely bought used or refurb recertified drives. I just bought a box of them. What's that company I bought them from? I gave them a shout out last time. Someone asked the question of where I got them. This company, Server Part Deals. They've had some really good prices on drives. I'll throw them a link. I don't have an affiliate link or anything. I just ordered and set up some drives from them. So I've been happy. I've had no problems with them. The only thing I bought so far is drives. And I bought specifically recertified drives. I think I got some 14 terabytes. But the price was good. I've had no problems with them. 12, 16, 14s. These are the ones I bought. I think they were on sale a little bit less than that, but hey, 14 terabytes. I already have a bunch of 14 terabyte drives. One of my other reasons for buying 14 terabytes was to match up with the big 30 other 14 terabytes. We have a lot of 14 terabytes at my office now. So I'm doing a bunch of data shuffling. What are some non-Ubiquiti switches that are good? I'm kind of mixed on them, but the Cisco small business ones weren't bad. They were very functional. I did a recent review of them, and they seem fine. I have a couple I've been using for a while. They work, no issues. So the Cisco ones are probably the only other ones that I would say are good. I've not had bad luck with Aruba either. I guess those ones work pretty good. But I think the Aruba ones were more money. It's been a while since I priced the Aruba ones, but Cisco, if you're looking for a simple, I want a switch that works, that's managed, it has some VLANs on it. Those Cisco, if you look at the Cisco reviews I did maybe a month or two ago, I think those are a solid switch, and the price was actually really good on them. So you get good product. Now, if you're looking for a dashboard to manage a bunch of switches, you have to go back over to something like UniFi. But if you're looking for standalone individual switches, I think those Cisco small business ones are a good fit. Having high availability with one on-prem head scale and one Tailscale from the cloud is possible? No, it's not designed that way. Build or buy a PC or laptop for bare metal Linux. I don't know. I build, but I'm not opposed to buying. DB Tech says, I buy from Go Hard Drive on eBay. Okay. Hate to be that guy, but about to set up a small production virtualization cluster, looking at obvious contenders, XCP-ng and Proxmox. What's the current standing on each? You know, I might do an updated video on Proxmox because I've used it more and I don't hate it, but it's very different than XCP-ng. Proxmox is cool for Homelab because it gives you so many bells and whistles. There's so many extra things because it's Debian under the hood. From the standpoint of business and support environments, when you're trying to create very supportable, homogenized systems across your clients that you can manage, where people don't get to tinker with all the underlying, infrastructure that supports it, it's easier to set up and easier to maintain an XCP-ng system, because if people start plugging stuff into DOM 0, they're doing it wrong. That's where XCP-ng might be more restrictive. It's more appliance, but this is that whole concept of, when they tell you you don't want to have a server that's harder to set up. What do they call that? Like the treat them like cattle, not like pets, or something like that. It's a phrase I've heard used a lot. That means you can just eject. Well, someone asked me about this, and I was on the other day in the forums. I'm like, yeah, you could just eject one of them out if you wanted erased, and you just adopt it back into the cluster and wipe it. It doesn't matter. There's no configuration time you have to spend on it. When you join one to the pool, they're called pools, resource pools inside of Xen, not actually clusters. But when you do that, it joins it in there and gets all the settings cumulatively sent across there. It's a very clear system. It scales very well. Proxmox, on the other hand, you can customize quite a few features on it, which means sometimes people do. So now I've had people ask you, how do I back up the hypervisor itself? Because there's so many config changes I made. Well, you should document those config changes. But yeah, if you lose one of your nodes, you're going to have to bring up that configuration on there and set it back up. So both are good. I'm partial to XCP-ng because that's what we do internally, and it's what we support with our customers, but both are good. Yeah, if you're lucky enough to have an e-waste nearby, that is a great thing. You can get really good deals on drives, provided they know what they're doing. I've had good luck sometimes. I'll walk you through. We used to have a couple of them around here. I don't know that we have them anymore. So do you think we could just leave the UDM Pro and stick the pfSense on top? I have a video on that. I show how it can be done. It's just silly to have both of them. If you need the performance, SAS is not bad. SAS can be worth it. The controllers are often better and less cabling if you have a backplane. Yeah. Looking forward to testing new Netgate 4200 in the lab. Hoping it's a good upgrade option for a bunch of firewalls. Yes. Thanks. Have you been able to play with Inabit integration for their SAN functionality? Oh, Linbit. I've not tested it. I don't need it that often. People ask a lot about it, and we're shuffling a bunch of data right now. If I were to build a different back end than what I have now, I would just rebuild in Ceph if I really needed it. Maybe ExoStore 2 when it comes out, but for the most part, I'm going to wait. It's just so easy to move things around between the different storage spots. So I don't need this. And the other problem is the real big issue I always have anytime you start talking about these hyper-converged things, and Ceph has this as well. And this actually goes back to Proxmox. The number of people we just had someone recently reach out to us with a broken Proxmox system that doesn't work properly. Why? Because the Homelab person said, I can do it, and then took on the task of setting up a Proxmox hyper-converged cluster with Ceph all running on Proxmox. And they sold this setup to a production company who then is now firing their IT company who did this because it doesn't work right. And this is one of the things you'll learn if you put things in production versus in your lab. Your lab may not have, and very likely doesn't have at all, the same demands and scaling problems. For example, what happened was the hyper-converged system can't do the compute it takes to deal with a production workload with Ceph running on the same systems that's running the production workload. If you ask, and this is the people I lean on for my Ceph knowledge because they are the Ceph experts, 45 drives. If you called them and wanted to do that, they will say, no, we will not do that. If you say, well, I'd like to get a Ceph cluster, they said, our minimum supportable, viable Ceph cluster is 4 of our servers tied together, and we want a 25 gig network between them. That's where we start before we'll even consider putting this in production. And that's the difference. Because you can does not mean it will hold up to heavy workloads. There is a level of calculation needed to get all of the data synced between the systems. So if you have 10 gigs coming into your Ceph cluster to service whatever the storage target is, you need 25 gigs. It's kind of an amplification effect here of when I send data down and the Ceph controller wants to distribute that data and actually verify the rights that the integrity is valid. That takes a lot of CPU calculation. That takes the OSDs syncing up the data across all of the Ceph cluster to go, yes, we have confirmed the data is written. Thank you. Send us the next request. It's a pretty beautiful and elegant process, but it does take a lot of processor power. If you try to do that all inside one cluster, now you have a performance bottleneck that's pretty huge. So yeah, just my thoughts on that. Have you heard about the Polish security researchers that hacked trains? Proof that the produce, would lock the train up with bogus error codes at some date. I've seen that. Not shocking. I'm going to ask, I got them from my friend Jonathan, and I don't know what to do about this question because Jonathan doesn't sell them. Jonathan gives them away when you go to sign up for events in person with Ninja One. So I don't know where to, I'm going to ask Jonathan if I can print his shirts and donate money to him. I'll ask him about that. Cause a lot of people have asked for that shirt. And I don't want to just copy Jonathan's shirts, but I'm friends with Jonathan, who is the person who is in control of the marketing and community engagement over at Ninja One. vSAN is a great solution and VMware HCI, but 2x10 is a minimum. Yes. Yeah, Proxmox itself tells you 25 gig is a minimum for Ceph. And some people have plugged in 25 gig cards and didn't think about the rest of the problem, which is the having enough resources, because it takes a lot of individual processors to calculate all of this. What if those processors are also working the workload? So just because you can run Proxmox in a hyperconverged mode, when you build these clusters out, cool for high availability, not good for scaling up to heavy workloads that have a lot of IO that has to suddenly be synced. Because having the bandwidth to sync is step 1, having the processor power to calculate all of that syncing, step 2. Is Proxmox good to learn for enterprise, or is the CE version of ESXi better? That really depends what your goal is. Once you understand how hypervisors work, the reason I'm able to use Proxmox at all is because I have a good understanding of hypervisors. So I'm able to pivot between them because they all have the same principles they work on. You just have to figure out where the buttons are. And when it comes to ESXi, yeah, you're definitely going to find, well, as of today, a lot of ESXi inside of the corporate environments. So is your goal to apply for a job to know ESXi? You should probably get proficient at that if that's what your job's going to be. But I think it's good to know all of them. It's not shocking, but I wonder what other big tech companies are doing. Look, all you got to do is look up the fight with John Deere. And I've covered this, probably back in 2017. We talked about John Deere on our Sunday morning Linux review podcast. I remember being probably 2016 or 2017. We brought it up numerous times because the fight with John Deere has been ongoing for years. They're another company that's just awful to their end users about things like this. So there's lots of companies doing it for sure. My company, healthcare, with a massive IO, uses ESXi with the NetApp storage rates. I don't love having to think about inodes, though. Yeah, they're running out of them, even if storage is good. A lot of corps are dropping ESXi. The licensing is getting ridiculous. Yeah. I see. What's your opinion on container orchestration systems like Kubernetes? I see it's becoming more popular on my job role. Do you think it's going to be an essential skill to learn? I don't know about essential. Unless, well, how would we say this? If you work in a job where they're using Kubernetes and that's what runs things, let's say you work for Reddit. Reddit's infrastructure is built on deployed Kubernetes systems. So if you work and have a job at Reddit, then it's important for your job. It's not something that everybody needs to know, but if you go into niches where it's used, and I don't know that's really niches, but if you go into areas of IT where it's used, I work in IT, I have a great career, and I don't have to know Kubernetes. So my niche doesn't use Kubernetes, but if you're in the niche that does, IT is extremely broad. So you have to figure out where you're going to go, and then you have to have the skills to go there. So I mean, Kubernetes is very popular. There's no doubt about that, but it comes down to the, where you're going to end up. You don't own a tractor. And you know, the difference between enabling jumbo frames in entire land with 10 plus cameras and NVR? No, probably not at all. The cameras generally are not bottlenecked. When you think about how many Netflix streams you can watch on your network, and you don't even have, well, some people do, but most people don't have, I don't have, I think my internet is only 300 down. We have like 4 or 5 people watching 4K Netflix. 4K Netflix has a higher frame rate and a better quality than a lot of the cameras. And it's doing it on less than a gig. So you don't really you're just going to have a giant headache if you enable jumbo frames. Because I don't think the cameras may or may not have good support. Who knows what other issues? It's a good learning opportunity. I'll leave it at that. Tractor as a service. That's a way to describe John Deere. As the quote goes, am I working with a custom harvester? Nothing runs like a John and nothing dies like a deer. Yeah. I came across a signed copy of Ghosts and Wares at half price books. Well, unless a stranger forged Kevin Mitnick's signature. Kubernetes is essential for development companies, not essential for companies that don't do development. I'm not going to say necessarily development, but because Reddit's not a development house, but Reddit runs on Kubernetes. So I believe lots of the Google systems do as well. It just kind of, if you have a large scale web application that has to be the scale that Reddit operates at, you're probably going to find some Kubernetes underneath of it. It's a complicated tool, because read the Reddit outage that happened earlier in I think it was mid 2023. If you go through the Reddit blog, though, they did a debrief on why they went down for 2 days. It was upgrading Kubernetes, and too long didn't read. Kubernetes is hard, even when you do it every day. There's some complexity that comes with running a system at the scale Reddit operates at. This is actually something I wondered about a lot with hyper-converged solutions out there, which run SAN on VMs and not bare metal. If you ever looked at Cobyte or SIM for storage versus Ceph? Nope. Ceph all the way. There's a few other companies out there, but I'm going to say Ceph is the most well-supported, documented one out there in the open source world. And I try to avoid the closed source world, because it's generally like I got to directly experience just how terrible $100,000 experience. It's you pay for pain with 3PAR. I mean, this company spent some money, and this thing is awful. The reason they're engaging with us is try to solve some of the awful, even though they have a support contract. And they're starting to they actually found their Synology to perform not quite as good, but pretty good. And they're looking at a TrueNAS, an actual Boxer systems, and going, wow, this outperforms it too. And this 3-part system sucks. We're like, yep. It kind of blows people away when they learn how bad some of these enterprise companies are and their support. I mean, you're not talking like they bought the low end. I mean, this company bought a support contract and everything. So I just avoid most of these proprietary vendors. I've always found them to be just bad. People seem to like NetApp. I haven't done anything with NetApp. And I will admit, NetApp might be good because people aren't calling me to swap out their NetApps. So I don't know if they're good, but I can just say that people haven't been calling me about swapping out from NetApp. Maybe that means NetApp makes a decent product. Do you know if they plan to make their own P2V app? No, I don't think so at all. And I'm not sure why you're having trouble booting. And it shouldn't matter what system it's on at all. I don't have any problem booting Clonezilla inside of here. Let's find. I just downloaded. Let's see if it boots on this one, because this is a completely up-to-date Zen server. Go ahead. Oh, there's Clonezilla. So we just loaded Clonezilla. Go to advanced here. Change the boot order to be DVD. Save. Console. Run. Let's go ahead and doing it live because you asked. Let's see if Clonezilla boots. I have a feeling it will. Make it bigger. It does take a second. I know it sits here on a blank screen. If it sits too long on a blank screen, you go choose the fallback option. There we go. There we go, Clonezilla. I was just cloning something the other day. We cloned some systems, so I've always had great luck with it. Every time I've tried it, it's worked, and I've tried this on lots of different systems. I've tried it on well, this is a Ryzen system, Intel systems. Clonezilla as a VM to clone things is just simple. So I'm really not sure why you're having a problem with it. When in doubt, when it first boots, and we'll go ahead and do this, we'll force a reboot. If you're having trouble with Clonezilla, try the safe mode. So if we go here, make it bigger so people can see. I think it's other modes. Yes, fail-safe mode. Just go to fail-safe mode and do it from there. But they're not going to write a P2V app. That's not something that they're going to spend time on. I can pretty much guarantee that. Are there any free encrypted email add-ons a customer to use to send encrypted email between themselves or sending passwords and stuff like that? Nope. I don't believe email is the place to do that either. Bitwarden Send is your friend. That's one of the reasons I like it. Do you think technology will overtake on-prem IT or IT infrastructure is always going to be forever cloud hybrid, strictly on-prem? We're seeing people move away from the cloud because compute is cheap and the cloud prices keep going up. With the cloud prices constantly going up, people are going, is the cloud the place we really should host this? Best conferences. I'm going to say that it's expensive, but the ConnectWise conference was good if you're learning a lot of stuff. MSP GeekCon, if you're technical, is awesome. Good post for my forums. I can link to the ones I go to. Reddit RMSP is a good place to spend some time. There is a role called DevOps. There's also a growing role called SRE. Both require knowledge of containerization technology. Yeah. NetApp is decent, but their support is good, which is their popularity. Used for a contract a few months ago. Cool. So let me actually force shut this down because I'll forget about it. Fix the boot order. Save. All right. I brought a lot of X NetApp drives used, took time to reformat them because of the 520K sectors, but they are utterly reliable for the last 12 months. Cool. I worked on a lot of enterprise-grade infrastructure. NetApp is phenomenal, underrated. I've been around a long time. The Dell server is Windows and set to UEFI boot. You can use the Windows. I have another video somewhere, but you can Google this. Windows makes a P2V tool. They make their own. It's supposed to get you over to Hyper-V, but as long as you choose VHD, not VHDX, I know I've done that video somewhere, but if you Google, Microsoft has a tool to convert Windows, or hopefully you have something you're backing up with. You should have a backup tool that you can restore with. For example, Veeam will do it. You can use Veeam. You can use MSP 360. I don't know how you're backing things up, but there's, Synology. There's an example. I like Synology backups. You can take a Synology backup of a system like that and then restore it on XCP-ng. I've done that before. My friend used to call his Pure Storage server pure pain in the ass. He always disliked it. I never really asked why. He just said he had to talk to them too much to get little things done because they don't expose things for him to control. He had a constant complaint about that. He says it functioned, but very restricted with expensive licensing, and every change required him to talk to him. That was what he said. I only have one person that I know using Pure Storage, and they got rid of it later. So I guess he didn't like it. Other big names out there and good enterprise as well. A lot of vSAN, VxRail, Dell have looked at Pure Storage and Nutanix. Support really depends on sourcing good engineers. Yeah. And lots of these companies were all acquisitions, which is also interesting as well. They couldn't sustain on their own. And so now they're doing more and more acquisitions and wandering in there. With like 3PAR is owned by HP, and yeah, I don't think that's a good thing because HP's where products don't see. If you get bought by Cisco, your product development usually stops, but your licensing fees go up. If you get bought by HP, there's just no support, there's no product development, and the product eventually gets forgotten about. How can I get a job at an MSP? I'm just starting out in IT. Apply for a help desk. Disk to VHD. Yeah, that's the Windows tool. There we go. So you can find this. It's pretty easy to find. If you Google this, was the first result. And this is a Microsoft tool for doing this. OpenQ, a render software manager, and do you use it? Nope, never used it. Have you used Rocky Linux in production for your clients? Nope, we have not. We have a lot of, I think that all the Linux stuff we support, at least a large piece of it's going to be Red Hat. We have a particular data center that we support with a big piece of infrastructure, and I believe that's 100% Red Hat. If it might be some CentOS in there. I don't manage that side of the business. I just know the people that do. We have a bunch of employees that manage a whole section of the business that Tom's, it was something CNWR was doing this before we merged. So we have some really skilled people on staff that manage all that, but it's not what I don't really do anything day to day with it. Looking at vulnerability scanning tools, Nessus. We use Nessus. Hi, Tom. First time caller, long time listener, first time caller. What salary range should help desk IT info? That varies a lot. If you're in California, you're going to get paid a whole lot better than if you're here in Michigan. I think in Michigan, you might be looking at a 30 to 40K job, depending on your skill set and where you're working. If you're in California, you can't live on 50K a year. So it's going to be a lot higher. So it's going to vary with where you're working if you're working remote. But I'm not a domain expert on that particular topic, because I've never, let's see. I applied for a job once 25 years ago. I've not applied for a job since. And I do hire people, but I've always hired friends. So I've kind of avoided the actual hire. I've not hired a stranger. It's always been a friend reference. A friend of a friend is as close as a stranger. I've had no people. Well, I take that back. Joe was one of my only hires that was a stranger. But it was literally for working the counter and things like that. Joe hasn't worked for me in like 13 years. So that's long. He worked at a retail store. So I'm far from an expert on career advice. Don't think RHEL will be around. You underestimate how big RHEL is and how deeply embedded RHEL is and things like that. Looking up something here too. Yeah, like one of our clients, I'm looking up because I know what the client is. I can't say their name. I mean, they're running RHEL. They're a very profitable company. They did over 200 something million last year. They don't want any disruption. So they don't care. The people and executives that run the company don't care about the software that runs it, really. They want a lack of disruption. So there's no likelihood that we will be swapping it all. Once you get to these big companies, you're right. RHEL is Big Blue. It's IBM, but they're not concerned about it. That's not their focus. I'm a Homelab user. What's the fastest way to migrate from a single ESXi to one of the open source solutions? I like Clonezilla. That's my easy answer. But if you have enough hardware, you can stand up a XCP-ng and import your VMware. So XCP-ng has an import for VMware. We were talking about that earlier in the podcast here, that podcast live stream. But there is an option to import from VMware. That might be the fastest path to get things done, as a VMware import. Oh, yes. Never underestimate IBM's ability to screw it all up. You're right. Yeah. The cost to them, if we gave them a quote to swap their underlying OS, it's not that it can't be done. It's that, why would they pay it? If all of us have a moral issue with it, that's fine. They're going, hey, we make this much money. Our IT budget is this. Why would we switch it? Because you don't like Red Hat anymore? Because they are behaving poorly? They are not behaving with the faith of the GPL, and I should spend this much money to appease you. That's not a real impetus to get a business meeting going of, you should spend money and we should spend a lot of time swapping out the underlying OS because Red Hat's stupid. It's some companies will do that. Don't get me wrong. And I think Rocky Linux is a great solution. Just for what I day-to-day manage, it's not on our, if we were pitching something new, sure, we're going to build something new, might be on Rocky if we had to go that way. I'm partial to everything being under Debian, but we're not pitching anything new infrastructure wise to get that done. Not right now. Well, not that I've seen in any of our bids. Change is expensive, and status quo, pay the fee, cheaper than replacing. Yep. I don't think there's any way you can use static routes and Tailscale with a UDM Pro. Maybe, but I don't think there's any way to do that. I don't know. So 0 tutorials, because I don't even know if it's possible. This is one of the reasons I'm always suggesting people, if you need things like fancy routing and static routes, I just say get away from the UniFi stuff, because maybe they can do it. It's not going to be well documented. Does XCP-ng still CentOS 7? Do you worry about EOL in June of 2024? Nope, I don't worry at all, because they have their own repositories. They are taking care of all of it. So it's not a concern at all. They have an entire write-up on it. People ask that question a lot. That's why they did a nice blog post on it. I don't have it at the tip of my fingers, but if you search, moving from CentOS or Rocky, the team at XCP-ng is very on top of that. I don't know how fast the Edge Router X is. Hey, thanks for doing this. What would you recommend for a small XCP chest environment with Zen Orchestra? I've been shocked at how well those cheap little mini PCs that I reviewed, they work fine with it. I have one of the, what is that one? I don't know. Look at the ones I've reviewed. I've done them within the last 30 days. Those are inexpensive and they definitely run XCP-ng just fine. Any backup recommendations for system level backups bare metal when I'm not using Synology? I'm currently struggling to find the good provider. Acronis, Veeam seem to be too expensive. I don't know. I've only used Synology. I've used Veeam. Well, my company uses Veeam. We use MSP 360. But when it comes to like home user stuff, I have no idea. I don't know who's out there that does cheap software for that. I mean, Acronis has been around a while. I don't know what their licensing looks like, but Acronis makes a good product for backups. We don't use it. We've definitely used the Acronis imaging tools before, but not anymore. Like years ago, I used them and I always thought they always worked well. So I don't really have any complaints about them. Yeah. One of the reasons I recommend Synology is because the licensing is headaches. Matter of fact, it's probably worth noting this. If we look up the two, I should probably do this as just a discussion on cost. Yes, spending $1,000 plus buying hard drives is going to be pricey. But on the other side of that, this also is a place to store the backups. So it solves the problem of where do I put the backups and where do I get the license for the backups? They will cover both of these issues for you with one box. So, and it has a lot of other features. I mean, this is only one feature, so you can't just base the price on that, but it's something to think about that instead of paying some recurring license, you could pay no recurring license and have a place to store it at the same time. So I don't know. I don't know the easy answer. I know my easy answer for all of my home stuff. I'm using Synology to back it up because it just works. It works great. I don't have any problems with it. Log into my Synology, pull up my, I only have on this system here. We have some more at work, but I only have a couple systems here. But yeah, here's these systems that it's doing the backups for. And it works wonderful. This Stu is my studio computer, and you can see it backed up 12/17. So when I booted up the studio computer today to start this live stream, no problem. There's my 11 versions. If I need any files off of it, so if we go to restore, here's all the data on there. If I need to look at different file versions. There's probably nothing on here. I don't really save much on here at all. But it always gets updates, system. Is there anything in downloads? Probably not. Oh yeah, I updated some of this. I'm always updating different things on here, but yeah, it just works. That's why I like the Synology backup so much. Let's see. Bates is also working on moving away from CentOS. I believe is part of the plan in the next major release. Yeah, it's on their roadmap. You can also back up your Google Workspace, and yes, I do that as well. I work at a help desk at MSP. There's been some discussion about billable utilization not being a good metric for determining efficiency. What is a metric for ticket resolution that works for you? That's probably a good question that we'll answer on business technicalities, but it's challenging. There's no easy answer for that question. It's not like a this or that. So There's we measure how much time the tech spend on a ticket. We measure response times, whether or not they escalate a ticket. If they're level 1, did they escalate to level 2, etc. It's a big, complicated topic. Maybe we'll do it on business technicalities. Isn't 45 drives using Rocky Linux for Houston OS? They use a few different ones. I've loaded Houston on Ubuntu, works fine, but you can run it on Rocky as well. Suggestions for a CPU for a Proxmox server? I don't know. I don't test Proxmox, so I don't know if there's as far as I know, it should work with most systems. So whatever processors, I don't know. I have a whole Ryzen build with my XCP-ng. I like it. I'm assuming it'll work with Proxmox, but I've never loaded it, so I don't know. Thanks, Tom. That's true. As I stated, a small MSP company, I might stick to Synology for all my customers. Well, no, if you're a small MSP, you need something with central management. Synology's missing that. So Veeam, there's a reason we went with Veeam. MSP 360 is still a good one too. Both of those are good. It's one of those things you're going to get the customers to have to cough up. Backups cost money. Do you use Synology backup in an enterprise environment? We don't as a company. We do as a consultant. So if I'm going to this is what comes down to. Here's the question that needs to be answered first. Who's going to manage these backups? We set up a large company to have them internally, their internal staff, team of IT people are managing the backups. That was the goal from the beginning. So we consulted with them and sold them a Synology so they can back up all of their internal systems. They manage the backups, not me. If you want me to manage the backups, me, Tom Lawrence, who works at CNWR, we are going to say, no problem. I'm not going to babysit a bunch of Synologies because they don't have a good way to do that. We're going to sell you Veeam. So that's where the split is. I don't have time to run around sticking Synologies everywhere and logging into them because Synology doesn't have a good way to do that. So they don't have a good multi-tenant system. Maybe one day they will, but they definitely don't today. So managing all their backups in Veeam so we can tie it into our systems and integrate it works better. Nope, I don't really use Duplicati, so I don't have an opinion on it. Will Netgate release the 4200 soon? I don't know. Whatever they say on their site. Acronis Cyber Cloud works good for central administration for backups and remediation. Yeah, some people seem to like it. I don't know any problems with the Acronis stuff. They are really a popular company. I know Acronis is trying to get into all other aspects, but they're obviously known for their backups. That's kind of where they built their reputation, but it works. What else was I going to show here? Not Hyper. Where's it at? I got to see what I can show before I pull this up on a screen. Is there a way just to show this? No. It doesn't give. I thought I had a better. It does. I'm looking for a report that doesn't have a bunch of people's emails on it. But either way, I can at least state this if you're wondering. Yeah, I'll close these extra windows. Because this was brought up about the Synology. This is a thing I do use this Synology for because this is mine. It's weird because it has a trouble with the calendars once in a while. This is the Synology backup for my Google. So we have 140 gigs of my Google data backed up. It's actually smaller than I thought. But this is really nice feature of Synology is being able to back up either Office 365 or your Google G Suite account. What do they call it? A Google Workspace account. So I have no problem. I back up all my Google Workspaces. I'll pull all the data in here. All the emails get backed up. It's been a solid system for that. The only errors it seems to have is if someone attaches something to an email, sometimes it has a problem with the email attachment. attached to the calendar event. So it won't grab something that may have been attached to the calendar invite. It's kind of a weird, all it does is tell you they couldn't back up the attachment. It backed up the event because you can actually restore calendars, no problem with it, but it can't do that. So this is another nice feature of Synology. I need to probably do an updated video. Maybe people are interested in what Tom's running on his Synology. So yeah. That's why we've been moving from TrueNAS with TrueCommand paired with Veeam away from Synology. Yeah, we never use Synology other than from a consulting standpoint where we're not the ones managing the backups. Synology again. So I guess we're just on a Synology. Whatever your question is, Synology might be the answer. But yes, I like the Synology NVRs. They support a wide array of different cameras. So definitely a solid. I've been using, we sell a lot of those. They work really well. Will Tailscale on pfSense bypass the firewall rules and other rules? If so, what are good practices we use? I have a video where I dive into that. I'm not going to, it's covered in my video, Tailscale with pfSense. So it's detailed out. That video is not very long, but I break down how the firewall rules work with it. There's things that work. There's things that don't. Any experience running Synology directory server on a small domain? No. I take that back. Someone paid us to set it up for them. We wouldn't, it's not what we recommended. It's what they wanted. So we'll do what people want. Sometimes they have a use case for it. We wouldn't run that any of our clients. Almost all of our clients are running Office 365 or G Suite, but they'll have a domain and we usually tie it to their domain server. The problem with trying to replace a domain server with a Synology is it's not going to have all the features. And then you run into some line of business application that expects an Active Directory connector. Then what do you do? If you sold the client a product that won't now support their line of business app that they want later, do you sell them now again and reset everything up? It's not worth the risk, in my opinion. I would say it's a home user thing. It's not something I would use in business. As someone who is going to be 50 soon, no. But I don't know. It so much depends on the person. I've bounced around and done lots of things in my life, mainly tech related, some things not tech related, but it depends on the person. It's not something I can answer for you. I mean, is it possible? Yeah. I've known people who, my friend within the last 8 years went from automotive factory to working for a very, very large cybersecurity company, making almost $200,000 a year. Can it be done? Yes. Does it depend on the person? Yes. Nope. I don't care about IPv6. I can listen to all the hate in the comments on it whenever I say that, but I don't really have an opinion. Like I can turn it on, I can turn it off. I'm fine with it off. It turns out, even though people will try to share statistics and go, ooh, but Tom, some percentage of the internet actually has it. Yeah, try turning an IPv6 only stack on and watch everything break. I feel, because it's been the year of IPv6 for over 20 years now, that it's going to be coming soon for 20 years, that I can keep shrugging my shoulders about it. I've got 20 years of evidence behind me that it's more likely something else will replace IPv4 before IPv6 becomes popular. The cost of dealing with these servers is less than the cost of dealing with the replacement that just don't have the features most of the time. Yep. I understand that Synology is meant for business, but I wish there were more server options, dual replaceable power supplies, more NIC options. They have those. I've reviewed those models, so I'm not sure if you're unaware of them. Matter of fact, if you look at the one I'm using, this is a rack station, and if you go to there, I've reviewed a few of these. This is the one I have. But hey, look, dual hot swap power supplies. So I understand Synology is meant for business, but I wish they had more server options. So I don't they do have them. You don't care until CrossTech blacklist the content network behind you. Yeah. Synology server, the SA32, 34, 3600. Yep. Those ones as well. They got some good products for this. One of these, I think I reviewed this one recently. They're on my channel. If you just type in Rackstation on my channel, you'll find them. I don't think that hinders at all. Honestly, it's been much less of an issue. They've expanded what drives are on that list. And they're actually a good set of drives. So it makes home users unhappy, but most of the business users, they roll it in as total cost of ownership because when you get the drives with Synology, they come with 5-year warranties. So you're talking about buying a product, and they have several options of the drives. They have more than just the Synology drives now, and they just roll it in. And we've sold a few of these with the Synology drives in them. It's all just part of the 5-year total cost of ownership is going to be this. Here's your quote, and then we sell them. Yeah, I'm one of the things I'm puzzled by with Synology is just how stupidly stable they made the product. It's actually kind of weird. The number of failures we've had out in the field with Synology is absolutely incredibly low, like shockingly low. And yeah, I got no complaints. Like they're able to do it. It's just awesome. Well, it's not just their prices. When they first released them, yeah, there was a big price discrepancy. Now there's not. And some people even look at it an advantage going, oh, cool. I can just contact Synology. They make the product. They sold me the drive. And Synology's not actually making the drives. They're certifying and labeling their drives from other companies. So you get this kind of nice, I can contact one source for all of this to get a 5-year warranty on the device and the drives. So recent struggles migrating data and apps from 2012 production servers before end of year. Everyone does. Every client that put the job off until now is struggling with it. Um, I hate all printers. I have no opinions. I have no positive things to say about any printer company. Part of the Synology stability is restricting third-party hardware. It probably doesn't hurt, especially because the hard drive companies were doing so many shenanigans. Like I understand from a storage standpoint why is because if you have companies that are doing shenanigans on the performance of their drives and being inconsistent, how do you build a NAS and guarantee consistent performance? So that being said, there's no doubt in my mind that Synology doing this is just a response to, partnering with certain companies that aren't going to do shenanigans. Yeah, WD. There's a lot of companies that are just shenanigans, man. It's a challenge. I do. I haven't seen a Kyocera printer in a while. I don't really look at printers, so I can't say. I don't know what the market saturation looks like for any one particular printer. I do have a brother printer, and it works. Well, my wife has a brother printer, and it works. I don't print things. I print almost nothing. If you could look around, I'm looking around my office. There's no paper in here because I don't print. There's no printer in my office because I don't print. The only time I ever have to print something, I just had to print some form because sometimes this is annoying. Sometimes I can't DocuSign something. It's the only time I ever got a print. I just had to do an update for my 401k plan. They don't have DocuSign. I don't know why. It's freaking 2023. And the firm that does the 401k plan required me to print and sign because they don't do DocuSign. So I've had to print a couple times this year. That's it. Well, you're not going to find hot power supplies in home user products. The engineering cost it takes to build the system is going to drive the price, then the home users don't want to buy it. But there's nothing stopping the home user from buying the dual power supply one. So there's, home users can buy these. Matter of fact, I mean, technically, this is in my studio. My studio's at my home. So that makes me a home user of the Synology. I like this box. This box has been great. I've had it for a few years now. I think I've had it for 3 years. But it does everything I want it to do. It's an it's just a silly little AMD Ryzen V1500. It's really not a fast one, but it's also not drawn much power, and it's not giving me any headaches. There are definitely more things printed with my 3D printer than printer. Like the 3D printer gets way more use than the paper printer. Print, sign, scan, then email seems to be the rare condition. I need a printer to use. Yeah, it's the only time. My wife actually, because she works in finance, she has to print a bunch of garbage. So she uses it all the time, but that's the nature of her job. You have a DS218 Plus running perfectly until this day. Oh, that's sad. We just tell them to send us. I mean, if they can't figure out how to send us something encrypted, as in they being the previous IT company, we'll work with them to figure out something. We're using Mimecast, so we have the ability to send secure emails through Mimecast. We can also recommend they use Bitwarden Send to send us things, but usually when we're getting the passwords handed off, sometimes it's just we're going to roll them anyways. I'm not telling people to send them an email, but especially when we're dealing with really amateur, inexperienced IT people, we're like, just however you want to get it to us, send it in Signal, send it in some format. If you have to, worst case, but not recommended. We're going to roll all the passwords. Read them to us over the phone if they need to. But most of the time when we're taking over, we find a lack of passwords, which is pretty common. It's so much stuff ends up getting reset because the other IT people were poor, or a popular takeover. The other IT people vanished. So we have to dig around and see what they left behind, maybe a book. And like one of them we took over, their book was so wrong. So many just bad information, IP addresses that didn't match, servers that I don't know where these imagined servers were, but they didn't line up with the company. Yeah. Just send me some smoke signals. Put them in you can do binary smoke signals, right? How many bits per second is a smoke signal? Not a lot, I can tell you that. Yeah, if at least you're getting passwords, that's the truth here. Yeah, it's always if we're getting passwords, however, I don't know. We offboarded a client recently. We gave them their passwords. So, which is funny. They haven't opened them yet. We don't even know who's taking over. We do a fire clients once in a while. I've talked about that before. Sometimes you just got to make these people go away. Like, we don't want you. You have too many problems. Bye-bye. Smoke signals. There we go. Thanks for all the info. It helps. A couple of projects I'm working on is directly related to the channel. So this live stream's gone on for an hour and 49 minutes. The problem is I've wandered around all the topics. what I'm going to do, and I'm trying to find a company that does this well, is I have a list of them to try. I'm trying to find a company that will index my videos and redo the timestamps on there. And it's kind of cool. There's some AI tools for this. This is one of them that I'm testing next because the other one didn't work out so well, which is called Taja. How YouTubers optimize, but it can create nice video summaries of everything. And so this is one of the things I'm going to be testing. So a lot of people have asked me to do better summaries of the videos. This is, if you want to know where that sponsorship money I take goes, besides buying gear, these all have costs associated with them. But this one seems pretty cool. This is another one I'm looking at, but it is my goal. I'm starting to work on ways I can level up the channel and add some more context to it. If someone knows a good tool, I would be thrilled, because the problem I have is some of the ones that have been recommended so far haven't worked. And it's been kind of a pain to try to find one that works properly. I know most of you are probably not in a YouTube space like I am, but this is on my to-do list, is to have more data indexed, have all the transcripts done. And eventually I'm going to build a whole large language model trained on all my videos and all my forums. That way you can ask it questions and get responses. That's my bigger goal, where I can now create another version of me based on 1,800 videos that I've produced and then see how it answers questions. That's how you document things. You start changing the passwords and see what breaks. It's unfortunately sometimes the way you have to do it. Trick question. Should you have the password, or should they be secured storely? Look, if the outgoing IT company never has the passwords in a good place. Yeah, there's all kinds of problems to, when companies lose their, databases, not having the passwords for it and things like that. Yep. In another year, those AI tools work better. Oh, they work good now. I am blown away with some of the testing I've done. I'm just trying to find, one of the problems I have is they don't like to do live streams. So that one's got me puzzled. They won't take a live stream after it's over and do it. Well, at least the ones I've tried so far. The next one I'm trying is those two, because I think they have that option. These are the fun things I have to explore to try and figure out which ones do or do not allow that. I use a lot of AI stuff because it just makes my life easier for automation. So that's been some of my focus, is how to automate my workflows even better and optimize. It's the same thing I do with any systems. You try to come up with the most efficient way to do it, the most optimized and automated way to do it. And I'm working on doing the same thing now with my channel, is how can I dump my videos right into these systems, do better summaries, index all the data, create really nice summary of all the information with time indexes, then link all that into my forums. So you have, if you don't want to watch the video, or the video like this one, we're an hour and 52 minutes in there, but maybe something was interesting to you, you could jump right through and go, hey, I'm looking for the talk on this topic. Great. Matter of fact, if I could have that system pull all the other videos I referenced, that would be amazing. Like, hey, index my site, and as I ask for these videos as a topic, find it and respond and throw it in here at the different timestamps. Well, I don't know. Maybe. So your question is, with the Lenovo ThinkPad, Wi-Fi not working. I think Wendell mentioned this before. I don't do much hardware like that. I don't spend much time loading. I usually look if a system's compatible ahead of time, but I think it was Wendell that mentioned that the Lenovo, and I don't know for this, all of them, one of the problems was if you tried swapping the card, the system would tell you it was a misconfiguration because that card was not the one that shipped with it. I don't know if they're still doing that, but that was a problem that was mentioned a couple times by people where Lenovo started restricting your ability to swap the cards. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. That's a forum search. Because this is one of the things I look up before I buy the laptops is, does it have the Intel Wi-Fi card? Is the Wi-Fi card they ship in this device supported? Those are the questions I ask prior to starting with the system. That way I have, I'm like, okay, I know that this works. Yeah, Intel for Wi-Fi. That's one of my things. I avoid Realtek and MediaTek. I look for Intel chips. I even talk about that with the mini PCs I've reviewed. Is first things first. Let's see what chips are in these, because they're not going to run. They're not even worth my time to try to load stuff on there if they don't have supported chips in them. Like, people ask me, hey, will this make a good firewall? I'm like, does it have Intel chips in there? Because if you buy something that has, Broadcom or Realtek chips, you're probably not going to have the experience you were hoping for. But with that, we're 2 hours in, so I'm going to wind it down here. I have a few things I want to get done. I have a few things I want to test, and I might chill out. I want to read a book today too. I just need to chill out for today. So yeah, even if you're using any of the PF Sense, always recommends the Intel chips. So thanks everyone for joining. It's been awesome talking to everyone. My voice is starting to get a little hoarse between all the people I had over yesterday at the party and all the fun and all the other. By the way, I will mention this too before I wander off, just so that person gets their answer. There's lists on the web. Ubuntu even has lists of I think Ubuntu still maintains some list of recommended laptops that work fine with their stuff. So that is definitely, it's like I said, it's generally speaking, before I buy a laptop, I go look up the compatibility. I search like that laptop model with Linux to make sure it's supported. Or you can go right to System 76 and they're going to sell you obviously works with Linux laptop because they specialize in that. So there's an option. But thanks everyone for hanging out, and I'll see you next time. I'm going to go chill out for my voice. I don't want to lose my voice. I need it for tomorrow. maybe it's a good time to read a book. It's a nice, rainy, quiet day. All right, later.